Here.
Council Caputo.
Here.
Council Delashula.
Here.
Council McClellan. Present. We have 4 members present. We do have a quorum.
Please stand, salute the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We got
All right, so we're going to take item 3.
ready.
Item 3.
Mr. Chairman, can we suspend the rules and take item number 3?
Item number 3, this is a resolution up by Council Mike McLaughlin to invite the Chief of Police to the meeting of Government Operations Public Safety Public Service for an update regarding steps being taken before the opening of the Wynn Everett project.
Councilman McLaughlin.
Mr. Chairman, on the piece, thank you. I have had some great conversations with both Mayor DeMaria and Chief Mazie, and they're both very committed to working diligently to put some more manpower on the streets and get some new equipment into the hands of our fine police officers in the city of Everett. And I could not be more thrilled and excited for the conversations that I've had in the past couple of weeks with both individuals. I'd like to ask at this time if we could lay this piece on the calendar for 1 month and invite back Mayor DeMaria, Chief of Police Stephen Mazie, representative of Wynn Resorts, and the union president for the Patrolmen's Union.
Second motion.
Motion made and seconded to lay this item on the table for 1 month, inviting the mayor, chief of police, and a union representative,
Union representative
union
or designee of their.
or designee. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. You have done so.
Mr. Chairman, move to suspend the rules, take item number 5.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to suspend the rules and take item number 5. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? You have done so.
Item number 5, this is a resolution of the Council Peter Napolitano that the administration consider through community development to set aside funds from the Wynn project when received to assist property owners in Everett Square and converting unusable businesses on the second and third floor spaces to residential.
Mr. Chairman, can we have the sponsor in front of us?
Motion made and seconded to have the sponsor before us. Please state your name and address for us, please.
My name is Peter Napolitano. I'm at 169 Cottage Street in Everett, Mass. I'm a councilman at large.
Thank you. Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the sponsor. Why don't you go ahead and explain the piece and what you're looking to accomplish?
Okay. What I was hoping is that something can be done similar to the loan program that's currently done through the Chamber of Commerce. How this program came about was years ago, a number of the Everett local banks put up a certain amount of money to create a fund, a self-sustaining fund where business owners could go and borrow money for business improvements. This program's been around for a number of years. It's self-sustaining. Even members of this committee who are not committee of the city council over the years, who are business owners have been able to take advantage of it. And the money is paid back into the fund so that way others are able to use it. I've had some direct involvement in that program as one of the underwriters when I was with Bank of America years ago. I'm looking, and I've spoken to members of the Chamber of Commerce, and I've spoken to the Director of Community Development about creating a similar type of program. You know, the one thing that is been hurting the downtown area, and you know, we've been around, you know, all of us have grown up in the city. We see that it's changed over the years. We've got a lot of second and third floor spaces that are unoccupied. The reason they're unoccupied is that it's difficult for a business to be able to go into there if they don't have handicap access. It's very expensive to add elevators. There's a lot involved in these type of transitions, and the end result is that nothing's happening. You know, or what businesses are there are really not augmenting the additional services that are in the square. If we look at some of our neighboring communities like Melrose, you know, Somerville, you know, Davis Square is a prime example. You know, a lot of effort was made into developing those second and third floor spaces to create a residential base that's directly utilizing these services. This attracts other businesses that want to come in now and take advantage of that. Now, granted, we do have some small population, you know, in the square, you know, both at the Sacro Plaza, you know, Park Plaza, but this is something that creates more of a square-based population that'll take advantage of these services. It's the same trend that's right now Assembly Row is using. If we go and look at the development there, it's all business on the first level, it's residential on the second level. And there's tax benefits to a business doing this. I worked with a lot of similar type of businesses in Revere when I was with Sovereign Bank. You know, a business that has residential on top is now assessed at a mixed rate. So their first floor, the commercial spaces on the first floor are taxed at the commercial rate, but the second and third floor spaces with residential are taxed at residential rates. It cuts their tax bill back. It actually allows them to be able to feed back, you know, money into the community. So, you know, I'd like to see the city investigate this. So there's a lot of discussion right now. We're trying to revitalize Everett Square. You know, we're not looking to give anything away. I mean, a program can be designed that, you know, creates a loan program. Money's paid back, comes right back into the program. And you can even set this program up with a time level that if money isn't utilized by a certain amount of time, it goes right back to the city. So there's a lot of different facets to this, and I think it's something worth exploring. You know, if we've got a lot of major development coming in, and when members of the city council had a meeting with the WIN representatives last month, you know, one of the things that I took away from that from the CEO down there was that, you know, people may not come from the casino to come up and have a sandwich in Everett Square, but their experience in other areas like in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, is that having that other businesses, other groups have looked into developing in an area that you would not have expected customers from the casino to come in and utilize. And they noted and informed us that they saw a significant amount of improvement in those areas. These are the things that we need to position ourselves and be ready to be able to take advantage of. So, again, I'd like to get a dialogue, as I mentioned at the council meeting, going on this, and see what we can do, see if there's some way to be able to make something like this work to benefit the city.
Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you. I noticed that we invited Chief of Staff, a member from the Chamber of Commerce, Business Community Development Director. Have you had a chance to talk with those folks as well?
I did. I talked to the Director of Community Development, and he's very familiar with the type of program that's already in place and how something like that can be duplicated and utilized. I had a long conversation with a member of the Chamber of Commerce last week. She thought the meeting was last Thursday, not this Thursday, and they're very excited about the potential. Now, granted, not every business, not every property owner in the square may take advantage of it. I know one particular one that is not interested in dealing with any type of residential issues.
Okay.
But it only takes one or two
Sure.
to start a process.
What would you like the next step to be with this piece?
I would like it to possibly go to community development and the mayor's office. You know, I have not spoken to anybody from the mayor's office. I know the chief of staff is here today, so I'm not sure if he's able to share any insight or any opinion on this.
Yeah, I would say, unless there's any other questions for the sponsor, I'd say we should probably invite up chief of staff and any other folks who are here on this piece to see if they have any information that they want to shed on that.
Motion made and seconded to invite the Chief of Staff up, please. State your name for the record and title.
Good afternoon, Kevin O'Donnell, Chief of
Thank
Staff.
you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Capone.
through you to Chief of Staff, Mr. Donald, good to see you. You've heard the resolution from the council. I don't know if you're prepared to provide any insight on that or whatever the
yes.
position. By all means, feel free.
No, in total agreement with Councilor Napolitano with respect to there is a lot of opportunity down the square for that, for those who may be interested. But again, I both agree that they are somewhat handcuffed because buildings such of that nature, because of the ADA restrictions and whatnot, once you start doing any type of reconstruction, you have to bring everything up to code. And that is really cost prohibitive for most people in that situation. So we're certainly open to exploring all options that would, you know, bring assistance and give the owners down there more opportunity for any such of these projects. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Councilman Del Solo.
Thank you. It's a great idea. I'm in favor of this. I'm just curious, what happens to the residents that are upstairs right now? In whatever building we're talking about? I know we went in all the square.
Well, that would probably be at the discretion of the building owner, I would imagine. Yeah.
Right. The building owner is still, obviously, if they have leases with commercial residents, they're gonna have to contend with that. Again, it really would come down to, you know, how strong a desire they have to make that. I mean, we can't force anybody to do
Correct.
this. It would be voluntary, so I mean, a business owner a property owner rather, that's interested in pursuing this as a course of action is gonna need to work something out with existing residents. The thing is that if you do look at most of these businesses, though, there's still a lot of vacant space up there.
Yeah.
And that space isn't helping anybody.
I think it's a great idea and a great start. We'll, all behind, at least I'm behind you anyways on this. Thank you.
Any other questions, councilors? Seeing none. Councilmember McLaughlin.
As I shared the square with Councilor Capone, half of it is in Ward 6, half in Ward 1. I could not be more excited about trying to move forward, and thank Councilor Napolitano for the initiative to get this started, because you do go through Everett Square every day and you look at these buildings. You go through Melrose and other communities and you see the development that's going on in all of their buildings, and you wonder why it's so underutilized, unfortunately, in the square. And to be able to just start opening the dialogue and getting a conversation started, and not sure where we'll go with it, but as long as it's going somewhere, it's better than what's going on today. And I take his recommendations of referring it to the respective departments and asking maybe for more of an open dialogue, maybe in a month from now. I know some of our department heads are away for school vacation and other things. Maybe in a month from now we can come back and have a more of an in-depth conversation on this matter. But thank you for bringing this to our attention, Councilman Napolitano.
And in addition, community development has been working with the team, going over several of these options and what could and could not be done. You know, we're willing to explore any options, whether it be addressing parking concerns, which also seems to be a big thing when it comes to residential, you know, citywide and everything like that. So we'd like to work on, you know, being, you know, progressing forward with anything that might need to be done to bring you know, some of these things to fruition.
Thank you.
And I think the big thing here, too, is that in the past, the reason the square has gotten into the position it is right now is that we've strictly been a reactive city in that area. Back years ago, before what's now Rite Aid, we used to be Star Market, that most people don't remember that was an unbroken string of businesses all the way down to 2nd Street. When they went in there and cut into that, the businesses that still existed south of that were gone. It broke the connection for businesses down further that are even further down. When the state had money available for municipal parking garages, Malden jumped all over it. City of Everett went after it after the money ran out. Too late. These type of changes don't just happen. You have to look ahead and you have to take some planning, and you have to have a long-term approach to this. So I'm very excited about the fact the administration is looking at that as well.
Thank you. Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it sounds like the next step is to lay this over for about a month. Is that what you would like to do as a sponsor, to get the information?
Or refer it to Community Development and Administration for a response in a month.
Okay. Is that enough time, Mr. O'Donnell, do you think? Do you need more time than that, or do you think a month would be?
I think a month at this point, I would have to say, would be sufficient.
Okay, all right. Is it premature to get property owners involved at this stage? Should we do a little more research first and then bring them in after, or do you think it would be something that would be beneficial to do at this point?
I think their feedback is one thing, but let's not get hopes up if this
Okay.
isn't something that we're able to do.
So look into it first, and then we can
Yeah,
go next.
come up with
So-
a more comprehensive plan, I think, and ideas, I think would be more beneficial.
Okay, all right, great, thank you very much. No other questions? Unless
On
there's any more-
the item,
Oh, excuse customary thanks.
excuse the customary thanks. Thank you for appearing tonight.
For your
Thank you.
time.
If I have it correct, I think it was requested to refer this piece out to the different departments that are listed.
Yeah.
With a response back in another month. So we'd be looking for.
Motion made and seconded to refer this out to Community Development, the mayor's office, and response back in 1 month. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. You have done so. Please read the next piece. Revert back to the regular order.
All right, item number 1. This is a resolution by Councilor McKinnon to have the Health Department, City Services and Housing representative appear to figure out what needs to be done to cure the rat problem on McKinley Street in the elderly center dumpster at Dunkin' Donuts.
Mr. Chairman, could we please have the various departments in front of us?
Yes. Could the various departments come up in front of us, and also the director of, okay. Please state your names and titles, please.
Yeah, on the back.
Hi. Do you want us to identify yourself?
Yes.
Frank Nuzzo, Code Enforcement.
Eddie Aliberti, Code Enforcement Inspector.
Bob Carrero, Executive Director, Everett Housing Authority.
Thank you for appearing tonight. This is my piece. I'll ask that I can speak from the chair on this. Thank you. On this piece, I know I've reached out to Mr. Aliberti, and we talked about this issue today. Can you bring us up to speed on what's actually happening down there now?
So you know there's a rat problem down there. It stemmed from the Dunkin' Donuts in their dumpster. And it made its way to the property behind, which is 881 Broadway. It was a serious problem. I've actually put together some, just some pamphlets here. It shows you, this is the before and after the Dunkin' Donuts. You want to pass those down? Mr. Chairman, there's one for you too.
Thank you.
That's the Dunkin' Donuts, there's a before and after, and then this is gonna be the 881 Broadway. There's one each too. So what we were able to do is get them, the Dunkin' Donuts, to clean up their mess. Excuse me. Clean up their mess, get a new dumpster, set traps, fill the holes, and we did that on both sides, the property behind also. And as of right now, we haven't had an incident reported to us since the filling of the holes and the new dumpster, it's enclosed. So we're waiting to see what happens.
It should take some time, correct? to
It
get
does.
them
I
out of
mean,
there?
they're still out there. I'm sure they're still gonna be borrowing their way around,
Yeah,
but we're trying to get a handle on it with the exterminators. Dunkin' Donuts has complied. They do have an exterminator. They do have set traps. And also the building behind us has also done the same thing, 881 Broadway.
are they in compliance, 881?
Right now they are, yes.
Was there any fines issued to any of the
To
properties?
both, to Dunkin' Donuts and 881 Broadway.
And what was it, if you don't mind, the totals on them?
I would say around 900 for the Dunkin' Donuts, 300 for 881 Broadway.
Okay, and, because I went by there myself today, and I've seen the traps, it's cleaned up, and there's no holes, visible holes at this point. There's crushed stone down now,
Right, they fill those with glass and crushed stone,
okay? And then there's the black box, the bait boxes?
bait boxes.
Correct, okay. So we should see some results, I would think, from that as well.
We should, absolutely. Well, with the traps and the holes filled, you know, I mean, maybe they'll come out some other way, but we're trying to get a hold on it, and I think we got a pretty good hold right now. With them complying, with their trash. So really Dunkin' Donuts was behind this.
Now, could we, I'd like to actually see if we could get the container that they're putting their trash into up off the ground, and if we can do that and possibly do some type of baiting there. That's the only thing that I didn't see today, is there's a baiting right there, but there's one further down, there's one on the opposite side, and then there's.
On Dunkin' Donuts side?
Yeah, there's three, I think. One
Yeah, and
against
then
their wall.
they have a couple behind the dumpster too.
Oh, do they? Okay, I didn't see that.
That was where the problem was. There was a
Yes.
lot of trash behind there, as you can see in the picture.
Yep,
There was a lot of trash there, a lot of holes. That has been cleaned up.
okay.
The holes are filled, the traps were put down, and I asked them to get a new dumpster with closable lids in the sides.
Yeah, the lids are plastic on top, and you could see the gnar marks on it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
kind of weak, but I think if we had like made it all metal on top, it would make it a lot different. Yeah, they wouldn't have a source, and maybe if we could actually have them agree at some point to agree to the dumping, taking that container out every night, so that there's no material in the container for them to be going after.
You mean have them empty it every night?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I can ask them to do that, suggest them to do that.
Okay. And, let me see, is there anyone, actually, I want to hear from the director as well. Mr. Director, is there any issues going on now at the elderly center that's adjacent to it?
I went back 2 years in our work orders. Anyone who has a problem with anything in the elderly development would call us, call maintenance, and report. We have several mice sightings, but we take care of 671 units in the city, and there's a lot of mice sightings. We have an exterminating company, 3 of them, different ones, that are in the city every single day. We've spent a lot of money from bed bugs to cockroaches to mice and rodents, other rodents. But a minimal of rodent calls have come in, 3 of them to be exact. That doesn't mean there aren't more. People just haven't reported them to
Sure.
us. With the elderly especially, they hate to call up and complain because they think if they call and complain, we're gonna throw them out because they're complaining. But it's still a small number compared to there's 120 units.
Yes.
In that development. So, having been in the restaurant business for 20 years, I know what, these guys have to go through, what I went through to try to keep up with, and it just comes down to almost on a daily basis, as you just said, to keep up with it. Because they'll go for a day, they'll be back again, and they'll be back a week later.
Sure.
And the cemetery's not too far away, so, there's an attraction there. But we're, knock on wood, the tenants at the elderly development haven't really had a problem with any of the rodents from that area that they're discussing.
Great. I've seen individuals with videos sending them to me, and they're out at night. That's what it is. They come out at night. They're nocturnal, I guess, and you could see them pretty visibly. So hopefully this will knock them down, and then we'll end the situation that's
Well, we're taking a
occurring down there.
proactive approach too with, we sent out a mass mailing about the dumpsters.
Yeah.
And about keeping the area clean and keeping them closed. And we enforce that a lot, don't we, Frank? We make sure
Absolutely.
that those dumpsters and lids are closed, because we're coming into the warmer months now, and this is when it picks up,
Yeah.
There's a lot of restaurants here, there's a lot of dumpsters, and some of these people just don't get, just throw a bag in there, leave the lid open. These things climb, and there's also squirrels, there's a lot of stuff. So we try to enforce this by keeping everybody in compliance and making sure that they're keeping their dumpsters and their dumpster area clean.
Mr. Nazo, I just have couple more questions, and then I'm going to open it up to the floor.
Okay.
Is there currently now an ordinance on the books that we can actually, cite?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
It's in our city ordinances, chapter 16, and it has maybe 15 or 20 different sections that cover from like deodorizing them to keeping them closed.
For dumpsters?
For dumpsters,
Okay.
yes. This was a serious problem, and I think we got a handle on it.
Yeah.
I had a call from a young lady that walks her dog there this was during like the early evening. It wasn't even dark yet.
Yeah.
And they had a companion walking beside them, and she almost flipped out. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Ed's done a great job. He's really been down there a lot, spent a lot of time, and we do try to educate the businesses. We don't really like to throw the tickets at them right away, and that was our approach in this case, but Ed was down there quite often, and it wasn't getting through to the manager down there, and that's why we had to issue the tickets. We really try to educate rather than ticket, but in this case, we definitely had to do that to both properties. And I feel strongly with Ed monitoring it, we're gonna get a good handle on it down there. It's gonna take a little while. I don't know what it is this year, but we seem to have more problems with rats. I know we got some issues down on the Parkway, there were issues on Norwood Street.
Chelsea Street.
Chelsea Street, abutting the Parkway, Tremont Street, where the Waters Ave project just went in. It just seems like this year has been very, very heavy. I don't know if it was because of the mild winter or whatever, but we're busy. We're very busy with this type of effort around the city. And we got some, did you pass out these? These are like neighborhood flyers you probably all saw.
Okay.
We go out and it's just tips on how the people should be handling their trash.
Sure.
And leaving out food for their pets, because that's the source, they find it, you know?
I'm going to open it up now to Councilman McLaughlin.
I'm going to yield the floor to my good colleague and friend to my right, Council Del Sol.
Thank you.
Thank you, pal. One question was answered about Whittier Drive, if there was any issues down there, but you answered that question. That was my concerns about them going across the street, and they're kind of in between their Dunkin' Donuts and the cemetery, so that was, you answered that question, thank you. Did these letters was any notices passed out to the neighbors in the surrounding area when this all started?
This flyer here that I have in front of me, we haven't sent, because when you do that, unfortunately, you really scare people. We want
Cause
to
a
see what
panic,
we're dealing
yeah.
with, getting a handle on it now. I'll have the inspectors go around the area of Dunkin' Donuts, you know, the Whittier Drive area,
Right.
and we'll make a drop. We're gonna do that in all the areas that we're having problems with it, so that you don't get a ton of calls, what's
Right.
going on, you know? You can reach out to your constituents and say,
Okay.
we're working on it.
Is this the worst you've seen in all of the areas and effort that we've had done? I mean,
Honestly, it's the most. The volume of it is just, it's scary that there's that much activity going on. You know, it really is. I know we have a lot of construction, a lot of streets being
Right.
ripped up. Even Florence Street Park is torn apart. I mean, you don't know if they're migrating from
Right.
there down to the Chelsea Street area, Parkway. It seems the areas that have been torn up, Whittier Drive, Waters Ave, I mean,
Yeah.
that area, they did major, you know, renovation
Right.
down there to that whole area, and
and you get the marsh, the
yeah,
land right
it's all
behind it.
perfect areas.
Yeah,
And like Mr. Carrero says, beside the cemetery, years ago, we had issues down there, but we got on it and got it under control, so.
okay, thank you.
These
Good
guys
work.
are working hard on it, they're not taking it lightly.
Councilman McLaughlin.
Thank you.
One thing that can be said about your department is you guys work hard, trust me.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks.
I mean that in sincerity. You guys are all over the city doing great work. I have one area that is a concern to me that I haven't heard from you guys on tonight, but we have had conversations about it in the past, Frank. Low Esty Street,
Lower Estes,
Estes and Broadway,
right.
particular business there.
Yes.
There's some residents that are noticing rats in the neighborhood of Lower Esty Street. They've taken some pictures and have sent them to me. Multitude of residents, not
Are you
just
talking more towards the
the
cemeteries?
Broadway side.
Oh, the Broadway, I know what we're talking about, and
Yeah.
that is an ongoing issue. I've
Yeah.
had conversations with several city officials today. That business that's in question, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna say the name,
Yeah.
the city's taking a very strong stand with them.
And I
that
know you guys are, and I.
They're gonna know, they're gonna remove the recycle bins that were provided for them and ask them to have their own dumpster and their trash dumpster too to be emptied on a regular basis, because they're just, again, we tried to work with them, educate them. I don't know how many times these guys go down there, it just gets frustrating. The only time you get their attention is when you write that $300 ticket.
Yeah, and no question that you guys have been down there and you guys have serviced that area, and we've had conversations previously
Absolutely.
about that multitude of times, and Ed has done everything but almost stand on his head for those residents down there.
Absolutely,
But there is a concern and an issue in that neighborhood, and I drove past there this past weekend, and the recycling bins, as you say, the lids were all wide open.
They weren't just, sorry to interrupt you, but they were putting trash in them. And they were saying it's from neighbors, but
Right, they were saying that the neighbors.
Ed was
were
down there,
putting
did you put that letter together today? Did that go out today, Ed, to the business about getting their own arrangements now that the city was no longer picking up their recycling?
Yes, I did it, I haven't sent it out yet.
Okay.
I've already
We're in the
typed it up, I
process.
haven't
This all
signed it.
happened today.
Sure,
I
I
haven't
understand, but that was just one issue that I wanted to bring to your attention as well, and I knew you guys were on top of it. But if you guys could go down there and try to address it for those residents down there, I would appreciate it, as we've talked about it in the past.
The
I go
only
every
good
day-
thing I can say is that I went in the business, it's spotless inside, it really is. It's a very clean establishment, you hope they do well, but they're just not getting it about their trash.
Could not agree more. They've done everything inside correctly, and outside is lacking. I wish they could bring that up as much as they brought the inside up. But thank you guys for your time. I know we got a little off subject. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No problem. Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to our guests, thank you for being here, gentlemen. And I do appreciate that, trying to educate the business folks first before you find them. And I know, unfortunately, human nature is sometimes you don't listen until you hit in the wallet. I'm looking at the burrow holes and everything else that's down there. They've got their bait stations down there. Do you think they have enough bait stations?
There are 3 on that side of 881 Broadway.
Okay.
They put 3 bait stations over there. Dunkin' Donuts has 4 on their side.
Okay,
So we have 7 altogether on both, on both sides.
okay.
That's big.
Unfortunately, yeah, the effects of it are gonna be seen when we start seeing them dead in the gutter. Unfortunately, you're gonna see them
Right.
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. and-
That's why we need that.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And, you know, it's important that the business owners know. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. That whatever's out there for trash, that's a food source. And we want to do is want to eliminate the food source, so the only thing that's out there for them is a bait station.
Right.
And then they go from there and try to get rid of the problem.
I'm glad you just said that. I forgot to mention it. The day after Ed was there, when we found the dumpster in bad shape, the lid broken, they had it emptied. I go back there, the gate's wide open, the dumpster's empty, but the covers are, blown open. And beside the dumpster, there's a big black trash bin filled with donuts and bagels on the ground.
Wow.
All the rat holes were already eating through. The girl just dropped it there that morning. So I was taking a picture, and she came out, I said, please don't touch it, until I take the picture. She couldn't even lift it up, it was so heavy. She goes, that's why I didn't put it in the dumpster. So that's what I mean when educating these people.
Absolutely.
I don't know how they accumulate that much stuff to throw away. They're not doing it on a daily basis or whatever, let it build up,
Yeah, you
so.
get your food source right there. There's no need to climb into a dumpster.
I mean,
There's no
I
need
went to
go
pick it
anywhere.
up
It's
for
right
her,
there.
and it was like, I thought I could do it one hand. I had to get 2 hands and flip it in, and I'm not a weak guy. It was like that bad, so
Yeah, wow.
that's where the education comes in, do it on a regular basis.
And with the current enforcement structure that's in place, do you have the authority to request or insist on more frequent turnover of the dumpster?
Well, the option there
Or
is.
is that a licensing issue?
We can tell them that that might be the solution. The only, again, is ticket, you know what I mean? If they
Right.
don't get the idea that they have to have it picked up more often by a suggestion,
Right.
we're just gonna
So
start.
if the problem
It's going
continues,
on
they
with,
really don't have any other choice.
515 Hancock Street, those apartments on the corner here, right on Broadway. Their dumpster, I've gotten messages from some of you guys. People throw trash out the windows of those apartments to try to make it to the dumpster.
And-
They've paid over $6,000 in fines, and it's almost like they just accepted that that's the way of living.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing for the business community as well, is, some of the contribution isn't in-house. There's gonna be external contribution. Unfortunately, it's the cost of doing business, and you have to be cognizant of that, and you have to respond to that in a reasonable and responsible way.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate the efforts to let them know that I understand not all of this is your doing, but it's on your property. It's gonna be your responsibility because we need to get the issue under control. I have no other questions for these gentlemen.
I have 2 quick ones, and, real quick. To Mr. Nuzzo, is there anything that we can do to strengthen the ordinance that would help you with this? In regards
Did
to
you
like
talk
the
to somebody?
lids?
I like the idea. I think you mentioned something that each dumpster should be baited, like whether they have a problem or not. It should be a requirement
It's-
that based on, what's going in
I
these
know, I know it
dumpsters.
is in other cities, and
Might
it should be
something you
here.
wanna think of and add it as an amendment to the existing ordinance. and
Sure.
I think that would be very helpful, rather than wait till we see them and then, react.
Yeah.
I think it's a
And
good
then,
idea.
and also, if we're gonna be doing, any type of digging up of parks or, areas that we're gonna be doing, they should have bait boxes in by, I think, state law.
They do. All these major construction, like the Waters Ave project, I just got the paperwork from them because a woman across the street's having issues with mice, and she thought it was from there, and she wanted to know if they did it the right way, and I said, I'll check with them. I know that it's part of the permitting process that they have to have a rodent abatement plan.
Yeah.
They've spent like almost $8,000 on it, so they did what they were supposed to do. Unfortunately, a development of that size at an area that was so neglected for years, there's a lot of wildlife down there, you know what I mean?
Sure,
It had to go somewhere, and we're trying to work with them to help out the residents down there that have issues, so.
I know, and just in talking about it, the Florence Street Park area, I was down there today, and I didn't see anything, so I don't know.
We can check on that one. I know that they had the bales around it.
Yes.
but They should be, I believe.
Should be bait stations
baits.
as well?
No,
Okay.
do you know? You don't know? Don't want
Come
to
on,
put you on the spot, but it'll be something we'll definitely check out.
All right, if you could just get back to me, that'll
Okay.
be off subject, so,
Excuse me, customary thing.
excuse the customary thanks. And
Mr. Chairman, just,
Councilman
I
Capone.
noticed that Dunkin' Donut property owner was listed here too. Do we have anybody in the audience from Dunkin' Donuts? Oh, why
Can
don't
we,
have you come
can we
on?
have you come up? Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We're all set? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for appearing tonight. If you could, just please state your name and title and also address.
Yep, Chris Angelillo, franchisee, also property owner. Address is 99 Walnut Street, Saugus.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, welcome. You heard the comments from the code enforcement department, and, you know, obviously, it's a problem that we all need to kind of work together on. Have they been open with the communication, explaining about keeping the dumpster tight, all trash inside, bait stations, all that? It sounds like you got bait stations going around, so you're aware of what's happening.
Yeah, and, you know, I spoke to Ed personally, I think it was last week, the end of last week. So it's a concern for us too. Unfortunately, it's like once it reaches our office, I think he was dealing with our manager, store manager at the time. So by the time it reached us, we were about a week behind, got the initial fine. You know, I made contact with our vendor, you know, got a new dumpster, and, you know, I take responsibility to, you know, our company as far as the oversight with lids, and, you know, it's obviously an issue that we have to concentrate a little bit more on. But as far as now, you know, we have a new dumpster in place. You know, I heard all the suggestions as far as putting it up on blocks and additional base stations. We have no issues with that, you know.
Great. And you heard that our chairman had mentioned the lids were a little bit light. The new ones, are they a heavier lid, or is it?
So, yeah, I made a note when I was back
Okay.
there. I'll see what we can do as far as getting a more reinforced lid and,
Okay.
and, you know, locks and stuff, so that way they can't get into those crevices.
And as far as removal of the dumpsters as well, our code enforcement seem to think, especially, I guess now, especially when you get into the warmer time of the year, there's probably gonna be a lot more activity with the animals. In the wintertime, they kinda hibernate and do whatever they're doing.
Right.
It's probably more of a concern to have more frequent removal during the warmer time of the year. I don't know how frequently you have the dumpsters
So,
removed now.
yeah, so we have three times a week that we do removals, but I feel like the, you know, a cost end for us, I guess the appropriate starting point would be, let's get them on blocks, more base
Sure.
stations reinforced,
Yep.
and, you know, absolutely, if we have to have more pickups, you know, we're in business too,
And I appreciate that too.
Yeah,
Because, you know,
yeah.
there's a cost associated with removing a dumpster every single day.
Right.
So I think that that's a smart assessment. Try to take whatever remedies you can
Absolutely.
prior to, and if that's still not fixing the problem, then look towards
Right.
more frequent removal.
Right,
But,
yeah, the last thing we need is
yeah.
that kind of
Well,
attention
I'm
also.
glad you're here. I'm glad that you appreciate and understand what's being said from the city, and that you want to be part of the solution. So I do appreciate that, and thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Councilman Delasola.
My friend, Mr. Capone, Counselor, answered my question. My question was, how frequently do your dumpsters get picked up? I was thinking maybe only when they get full, they pick them up. You said 3 times a week?
Yeah, so we do Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. So we hit it at the end of the week, beginning of the week. You know, we have our locations in Chelsea too, which is even a worse problem, believe it or not. So, you know, unfortunately, we're definitely familiar with, you know, dumpster issues and, you know, cleanliness and stuff like that. So, like I said, this oversight, I take absolute blame for, you know, as our company. And, you know, unfortunately, it wasn't a matter of just ignoring the issue. It really was just, you know, we didn't really know about it, how bad it was, I should say. So now that we know what's going on, you know, we're down there, we'll take care of the issue, and whatever we have to do to remedy the issue, we will.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilman McLaughlin.
I also want to thank you, Chris, for coming tonight, and I truly believe that you are concerned about the area and concerned about the neighborhood. I know that your family has been there for a long time, and you guys are down there on a personal basis. Do you have any other locations in the city of Everett other than that one on North Everett?
Yeah, we have 4 locations.
Here
So,
now.
that, yeah, 903 Broadway, we have Glendale, Ferry Street, 339 Main Street, and the Citgo gas station on 318 Broadway at the
So
lower end.
could you just do us a favor, try to look at those other sites?
We're looking at all 10 of our locations
Okay, yeah,
out
you
of the
wanna
city,
do
in the
that.
city.
I
and-
don't want to, in a month from now, have to have you come back up because
Absolutely.
another site is now starting to have an issue. So, you know,
Yeah.
if you could just look at all 4 sites, I know, you know, it's going to take some time and some work to be able to, but if you can just try to remedy all 4 locations so that we don't have a problem come nice weather the summer.
Absolutely.
I would appreciate it, and I appreciate you being here tonight. I know you guys are committed to doing the right thing for the
Yeah,
neighborhood,
no,
so thank you.
absolutely, and I give you my word that we'll take care of that. Yeah.
Through the chair, thank you, Counsel. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. Just,
Sure.
in regards to the lids, I went down there today, they're plastic lids that are on them. They have like the gnaw marks on it already.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I seen that. Is there any way we may be able to, when you ask for your new container, maybe to have a steel lid?
Yeah, that's what I meant when I said, you know, whatever options we can get down there, different containers, taller containers, you know, so I'll work with Casella as far as what we can get down there. And if
We
can
don't
get-
need so much as a bigger container, we just need the same size probably with the lids that are
Okay.
steel. And then if we can get the bait traps, you know, around that.
Absolutely,
That
yep.
would be great. And just as a request through the chair to you, if you're doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, maybe you might want to anticipate doing it for like maybe a week, and then another week, 2 weeks anyway, of constant picking up.
Okay,
Just so that we can actually say, okay, we're seeing improvement here.
right,
You know
right.
what
No,
I mean?
I
We want to eliminate the food source, and we want them to hit the bait boxes.
Right, yeah, I understand, the shock factor, so yeah, I can definitely, we can definitely do that for a couple of weeks and hit it hard and, you know, and then we can go back to a normal schedule, so no issues with that.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right. Thank you for appearing tonight. Oh, Councilman McLaughlin.
I would just like to make the statement that I can assure you that they don't have steel container lids, but what they recommend is that you put a chain with a padlock around the dumpster itself to lock them down, to lock the lids down at nighttime. But they don't make steel container lids because they'd be too heavy for
Sure.
somebody in the food industry to be able to pick up and dump into. So I do actually know that they don't make those, but just putting a chain with a padlock is the biggest recommendation by the trash companies, and I've spoken to several
Okay.
of them about other dumpster issues.
Thank
So
you.
I just wanted to give that to you.
Any other questions?
Excuse me,
Excuse the customary thanks. Thank you for appearing tonight, and
Thank you, Chairman.
I'll be in touch. I was the one that put this on, so.
Okay, thank you guys, appreciate
right.
it.
Thank you. Motion on this?
That's one. Here's my, okay. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Capone.
if we could, why don't we grant further time on this, maybe a month or so, get some feedback from code enforcement, see how things are going, and determine where to go from there.
What about an ordinance with it?
See how it's going.
Motion made and seconded to grant further time for 1 month with a report back from code enforcement on this issue. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Can we take item number 4 off the calendar, please, Mr. Chairman?
Motion made to take item number 4 from the calendar. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
All right, item number 4, this is a resolution by Council John Leo McKinnon. That the city of Plain find their properties throughout the city that are being sent tax bills to them with different addresses on their mail copies than the number of their street.
Councilman McLaughlin.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask for Mr. Master-Kohler, Mr. Desmond, Mr. O'Rourke, and I believe that is it. Those 3 gentlemen, if they could come before us.
Gentlemen, could you please come before us, state your names and titles for the record?
Oh,
Jay's not familiar with the situation.
Who, Fred?
Good evening, councilors. Bill O'Rourke, Director of Engineering.
Ed Mastrocola, 911 Director.
Michael Desmond, local building inspector.
Thank you for appearing tonight, gentlemen. Councilman McLaughlin.
gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. Have we got anywhere in the past month since we were here last month talking about this issue?
Yes, we have. If it pleases the council, and also helps residents at home, would you all mind if I rehash the 3 meetings, or the 2 meetings we've had in the past?
I have nowhere to go tonight. Be my guest.
Okay, so approximately 2 months ago, we had residents show up here complaining to city councilors. They had received their tax bill, and they had an unrecognized address on their tax bill, and that upset them. So they came to complain and were just wondering what was happening. I got involved after that meeting. I looked into the situation, and with the help of inspectional services, we learned that there are 240 properties in the city that have alias addresses. Alias addresses are mailing addresses, addresses that people have accepted as their home address. Those alias addresses don't match up with city records. They're different. And the city record address was actually on the tax bill as a result of a software implementation in our assessor's office. So that drew the questioning of the unfamiliar address. We met here a month ago, and we discussed if this is going to be a problem from a public safety standpoint. And we left the meeting, we sat down amongst ourselves and discussed this issue. We did some research, and the fact of the matter is, this is not a public safety issue. When people call 911, the emergency vehicles get to the proper addresses. People are encouraged to talk with the 911 operator. While the emergency vehicle is being dispatched, they're encouraged to leave a light on in front of their house. They give a description of their house. I asked the question, has this ever been a problem in the past of emergency vehicles trying to get to properties and going to the wrong properties? And the answer was, it's never been a problem, except when there's a person on the phone that has a problem speaking English. Translation issue, that has been a problem. But going forward, we don't believe that this is an issue, a major issue. I was asked to take a look at options, and I came up with two options. We can accept the status quo, allow these people to continue to have their alias addresses. They've accepted them for a long period of time. Mailmen are familiar with these addresses. They get all their mail, they get all their tax bills. Or we can force 240 people to change their address. This could be quite painful. The city could assist with this process by giving them packages, perhaps mailing cards that says, we haven't moved, but our address has changed. That can be quite confusing. We think there could be a lot of lost mail as a result, and we think there could be some negative backlash to city officials and this council. So that's where we're at. We feel that this is a non-issue. We had 5 or so people complain 2 months ago. We've done the research. Perhaps we can approach these people again and explain to them the situation. We could encourage them to change their address to match the record address here in the city. If they choose not to, we won't have a problem with that.
Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to our guests. Thank you for being here, gentlemen, and thank you for your time spent on this. Quick question, Mr. Mastrocola. I think when we were here last, the issue with the cell phone really wasn't an issue because wherever the call is made, it tracks to the phone. It was the landline that we were going to have a problem with if we had a problem, right? Or was it the other way around?
No, correct. The 911 calls from a cell phone, that's what we're talking. We're not talking a hotline.
Right.
911 calls. Whether it's someone dials 911 from their home or their cell phone. If it's a cell phone, it goes through a clearinghouse. State police run it, Middlesex County Sheriff's Department. It depends where they call from.
Okay.
That individual who answers the phone, I've never met them. Let's say it's the state police up in Framingham. What city are you in? Everett. They immediately will stay on the phone. So now there's 2 people on the phone. There's the caller and the dispatcher from the state calls Everett 911, calls Everett dispatch. Hi, I have a call on the phone, and they make sure the connection's there. State police, and I'm using state, will hang up, and then the dialogue starts between the caller and the Everett dispatcher. Because it's a GP, because the phone is based upon a GPS system, that caller could, you know, there are not many, but there have been many times where they say, well, that's Chelsea, because the person thinks they are in Chelsea, they think they're in Everett, and they're really in Marlboro.
Sure.
Those aren't the issue. The hard line, someone picks up a phone, 911, like I explained to at the meeting. In my 4 years, I'm not saying it will never happen, let me go on record, but it has not happened. They set protocols that are in place. They keep the caller on the phone. You know, that address on that screen, based upon a Verizon data system, could say Everett City Hall. And they say, well, I'm at 1725 Revere Beach Parkway. Okay, then that's where we're going. That, whatever's on the screen is secondary. So the emergency services are going to go to the address that the person specifically tells the dispatcher to go to. And then the dialogue expands a little bit. What's it look like? Keep the light on, don't keep the light on, front door locked. I mean, they know what they're doing. They're very good. The only issue, as I stated, that we've ever had is a strong language barrier. And, you know, again, I use Winslow and Windsor. It just, and they can't get the street up. But to go to an incorrect home based upon what the person said has not happened, to my knowledge. I just asked them again today before I came here, has ever happened in my 4 years as director. Doesn't mean it won't.
Right.
It has not happened. So, and it's only because there's a dialogue. They encourage them to stay on the phone all the time until, don't open the door till police knock on the door. Police out there, yes. Okay, now you can hang up. Don't open the door till the fire. Get out of the house immediately. I smell smoke, I smell gas. Take your phone with you. So there's a constant dialogue. Very few times will someone dial 911 and they hang up. They immediately call the number back that comes up on the screen. It's usually a child. Very, very rarely is it not a child. There's been a few in other towns, not here, where they're calling 911 and they're getting the PD to respond, and it's basically an ambush. That has not happened, obviously, because you guys would have known about it. If there's a 911 hang-up, they call back immediately, the number that's on the screen. Hi, you just dialed 911, is there emergency? And if there is no dialogue, they have a code. If there's an emergency, you need medical help, press 1 on the phone. So if the person could have four breaths left and 6 heartbeats, they're gonna press 1 on the phone. If you need medical assistance, press 2. If you need a police, press 3. So there are set protocols that they go by routinely. Just like we get up and put our shoes on, they know what they're doing. So we haven't had a problem yet, to my knowledge, since I've been there. Yes, sir. That's your job.
Yep. And thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
And
Well
I would
said.
say that it probably would be remote, and even more remote would be a scenario which would probably cause us to be a problem where someone was using a landline and became incapacitated almost immediately. That would probably be a much more remote scenario. And you're gonna get in that general area, because you're gonna, even though the addresses are off a little bit, you're gonna be in that general area. So I was thinking that there's 240 or so that we know of. And I know that, I know the process we were talking about was pretty involved. Is it as easy as maybe the city contacting these folks, letting them know that the slight deviation could be an issue and maybe they should talk to their landline carrier, just to let them know that there's a different address, or no? Right. Right, and what's happening is I know that they're getting their mail, but I don't know if there's, in the event, and it's probably a very rare event, but in the event someone is immediately incapacitated, they use the landline, nobody's around, there's nobody else in the house, it's something that's in a house where the neighborhood isn't aware of. I don't know if we could solve a problem by just letting folks know they should let their land carrier know that the city has it listed as X. So that way, if they call from that landline for the city's purposes for 911, it would pull up the right address. I don't know if that complicates things or if that's an easy fix.
If that scenario occurred, the phone rings and they immediately get incapacitated and they're down and out. they're gonna send the cavalry. They're gonna send police, they're gonna send fire, and they're gonna send Cataldo. And they're gonna correspond to the emergency service saying, look, I called them back, there's no answer. My last known listing was 27 Bradford Street, 3rd floor, Mrs. Smith. That's what I have. And then they'll feed out, you know, the PD will probably get there first because they're circling that sector. And if that is the case, and nobody answers the door, they will take the door off the hinge. And that's why the fire automatically goes, because they have the equipment to do that. It's a standard procedure with every municipality. It's, my parents, their condo in Medford, it just happened. Elderly person lives across the hallway from them. They called 911, and the phone went dead. They took the fire responded, police responded, and obviously Cataldo, Armstrong responded. And you go by there now, and they took the door off the hinge where the bolt is. They just spread the hinge with a hydraulic pump, the door opens up. But you have to do that because you don't know what the outcome is. It could be seconds, it could be minutes, it could be someone 90, it could be someone 16. So if that case happened that you just described, they would force entry into the house.
Okay. So one way or the other, they're gonna get there.
They're gonna get in the home, that is correct.
Okay. All right, I don't have any other questions.
Councilman McLaughlin.
Okay, now your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Mastercola. I know that I have a list of questions in my head for this issue, but I'm going to ask you one question.
Okay.
As the director of 911, are you concerned about this issue?
No.
Okay, I'll make a motion to refer it back to sponsor.
I'm not done with my questions. My turn now. Do you have anything, Mr. Delasola? No, I don't. All right. So I was the one that put this piece on the calendar. And the reason why I put it on there was, it wasn't because of 5 people, it was probably because of 50 people, actually. So that's the reason why I put it on. And I feel very comfortable with my political status in the city right now, so I'm not worried about it. I wanted to see if you guys would come up with some kind of idea, which the idea that you came up with was to reach out to these people and do what? Make it encumbersome for them, or make it easy for them to actually switch it if they wanted to?
We have to make a decision on how to proceed.
Absolutely.
We could certainly reach out to all 240 and inform them via letter of the situation and let them explain why they are seeing an unfamiliar address on their tax bill. I would say we could recommend to them, if they feel comfortable, changing their mailing address to match the record address we have here in City Hall.
We could give them the option, correct?
We give them the option, and we feel that there would be a low % of them complying with this request. If we wanted to enforce and order 240 people to change their number on their home, we could receive some negative backlash. City officials, city council, and the corner office.
Absolutely.
So we do have options. We seek your counsel. What do you guys think we should do?
Well, my opinion on this would be that we send out and notify these individuals that own the properties that there is a situation like this going on with their property. And if, in case they end up calling Mr. Masacola's people, then at that point, if there is a situation that hasn't occurred in 4 years, we can come back and say, we notified you, and there was a situation, probably the first one in 4 or 5 years, that it happened at your property, and you were notified about that. There wouldn't be backlash on the city for that, for not showing up at the right address, would there be? You see where I'm going with that? I'm looking at it both ends. That's what I'm trying to do now. So if we could actually maybe send these out to those individuals that are affected to show them that we are actually doing something with this, and then give them the option, I don't feel there would be a backlash, to be quite honest. I think we're just looking out for their best interest at that point.
I would agree with that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, on the motion.
Councilman McLaughlin?
So your recommendation is that we're not forcing them to
No.
change? We're just giving them a courtesy to say, hey, you know, such and such a 9 Baldwin Place is listed as 9 Baldwin Ave, or whatever the case might be. If you want to change it, come to City Hall and resolve it. If not, it's on you.
They'll have the option.
Sure, I always think a public service announcement is always helpful, but to force them, that's what I meant. What
No
my comment
forcing.
was. Thank you.
Councilman Capone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that, I think giving them the option is good, too. I think the purpose of the letter would also serve to alleviate the city from any kind of liability. If it does turn out that some fluke thing happens and we respond to a different address than what the homeowner did, and somehow it falls on us as the city for allowing it to continue without notifying the individual. So it may not be the worst thing to get the city solicitor involved, just in terms of what the content of any kind of a proposed letter could be, just identifying the individuals as to what the issue is. They can either voluntarily change or not, or at a minimum, maybe they contact their phone carrier. It might be a very simple fix with regards to how it comes up on 911. I don't know, but it might be worth referring it to the city solicitor to see if she thinks there is any kind of liability on the part of the city and what we can do to minimize that. Because 911 does an excellent job. And, you know, none of us are perfect. No system's perfect. And, you know, even though it doesn't happen or probably hasn't happened, may not ever happen, the fact that something could possibly happen, and, you know, you never know. For a liability purpose, they could say, well, the city was aware of it, did nothing with it. So we cover our ends here, get the information to the homeowners, and it's up to them what they want to do with it from there. The city has done its part and will continue to provide the quality service that we do, and hope that something does not happen. Either folks will voluntarily respond to it, and if they choose not to, and if they choose not to clarify it with their land carrier, we just hope that, you know, our best is good enough. It's always been up to this point in time, and hopefully it continues to carry forward. So that's what I probably would think about.
Councilman McLaughlin?
My only concern is that I don't want to sort of open a can of worms where we have a house. I have a friend of mine selling a house down on Esty Street right now. He's going to pass papers in 30 days from now on a house. The next guy is going to come in and purchase that house. The next landlord doesn't know that his house is listed in a different manner because the previous landlord knew. So I'm not sure that if we get the city solicitor involved and we start to, I don't know if you go halfway, do you have to really go all the way on this issue? Because we're notifying the people today, but we're not notifying the people tomorrow. And in my opinion, I think we're going to see probably the biggest boom of property transfers in the next few years as the city develops and moves into a different pattern and a different direction. So I'm not sure that if we really run with the ball, do we have to go all the way down the football field? Can we stop at the 50-yard line? That's my only thought on this subject matter. And I'm not sure, again, I yield to my colleagues, but it's a concern that I have.
Councilman Delasola?
I just feel a letter itself wouldn't hurt. I'm not worried about the liability. I don't know how I would feel or anybody here would feel if, God forbid, something happened and we're not liable, but how would you feel if Miss Jones down the street passed away because she had the option to change her address and we never sent the letter out? You know, I mean, liability obviously is a bad thing, but to know you might have prevented it or might have helped the situation, just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, councils? Excuse the customary thanks, but I entertain the thought that you just stay for a moment because I think part of the motion is going to be to send this letter out with a response back from you gentlemen in about a month. Is that enough time? Would that be enough time?
60 days, perhaps.
2 months?
Yep.
Okay. Response back. All right, motion made is to send out this directive letter to the individuals of the homeowners who own these properties and basically ask them or probably give them some type of guidance on what they should do if they want to change their number, and it would be advisable to do that because their number is incorrect right now. Something to that effect, and then a response back within 2 months from you gentlemen. Oh, Councilman Capone.
On that motion, if I could, through you to our guests, I just want to make sure that we're clear about what's going in this letter. Do we need more time to figure out what goes in this letter before we send it out? Or are you comfortable with just addressing the issue? Yeah. I think before we send the letter out, I would prefer if we got the city solicitor involved, and then we kind of get the nuts and bolts of what the letter is going to say. And basically, it's going to be, I think, more of an informational letter than anything else. It's not going to be a mandatory action must be taken. It'll be more of identifying the issue, letting them know what the options are, how they can address it if they choose to, and if not, what the possible ramifications could be, as remote as they might be. And then it's on the property owner at that point. So I would hold off and maybe grant further time, and we could send communication to the city solicitor asking for a little bit of guidance on that.
I agree. What we should do is then a motion to grant further time on this item, invite all individuals back that were invited tonight, as well as the city solicitor. And if you could be working with her in the intimate period of time to actually finalize a letter to go out before that meeting happens, then we'll utilize that letter at the end of that meeting there. We'll send it out. But it will be looked over by the city solicitor for legal representation for the city as well. Fair enough?
Yeah, and for those purposes, would 30 days for that do it, or is 60 more the desired?
How about a compromise of 45?
Yeah, I figured the sooner the better, but I want to make sure that there's enough time, both from the city solicitors and from our collective ends, to put something together. I don't want you coming here too soon. It's like, okay, well, we started to work on it, we got a good ways there, but, could use a little bit more time. So if 30 is too short, then clearly, we just want to get a good final product. So I'm agreeable to whatever time frame you think would work. I'm sure the city solicitor is going to want a little bit of time to work with it. I guess more time you have to think about what the parameters of that letter should be, what the contents of that letter should be, it would just benefit everybody.
It would be coming before us, and
Yeah.
you would have the letter in hand, and we could actually observe what was produced, so that we could vote on it and send it out under your
That'd be
direction.
fine. Yep, agreed.
And what was the time frame that you would like? then?
Let's go 45 days,
45.
if I may.
Mr. Chairman, on the motion.
Yes. Councilman McLaughlin.
In all due respect to my colleagues, is this not something that we can just do in an email setting, that we don't have to have another meeting to proofread a letter that's going to be sent out to residents? Can we not do this in an email format, have them submit a letter to us, we look it over, ask any questions that we may have individually, and approve it to be sent out, in 60 days from now, come back with the response, which was the original motion? I'm not sure that there's any real purpose of having them come back here in 30 days from now to look at a letter that is going to say yay or nay on it, when we could do it over email and do it outside the council chambers. I mean, I kind of think that that's one of those gray areas that we could resolve it outside of here, approve it individually, ask any questions we may have. These individuals are available all day, every day, and I've never not had them take my phone call or talk to me on a subject matter. So it's not like I feel that we're not going to still move forward with this process if we don't have this additional meeting in the middle.
Councilman Capone.
I don't have any
Either
issue with that at all. To the extent that we grant 45 days, 30 days, 60 days, whatever it is, if we get around the curve in 14 and an email draft comes along, I'm more than happy. I'd be thrilled if we're back here in 45 days and we've said up front, gentlemen, thank you very much, you don't need to be here, and we could have a final version in hand and go from there. It's just in the event that there are any questions, at least we'll have a date set up. That said, in the event that we get around it faster and we have a product that everyone's happy with, I have absolutely no problem. It's on the calendar, but we could call the invited guests in advance and let them know they need not take time out of their busy schedules.
And then at that point, Counselor, we could actually read the letter out. They don't have to report back. We already have the letter in hand. we're all set. We just report out what we're doing with that letter to the committee as a whole, out to the council, so.
Yeah, and it's-
That's
and
what we
it's-
need to do, so that's probably part of our process that we should do.
And it's a
Just
good,
as a reporting process out to the council.
Mr.
So-
Chairman, it's a good point, and it's a courtesy that should always be there, because, you know, we've got folks that are working long hours.
Sure.
They're here all the time, and we don't want to pull them up here for every little thing, but the city council, committee structure, formal structure, we should always be as courteous as we can be to the department heads, and be respectful of their time and their other commitments. And if there's ever a time frame where communication, as long as it's not a large enough body that we get into a violation of the public meeting laws, open meeting laws, we're good. In this forum, we won't have that problem. So, and I would welcome email communication or anything along the way sooner that, you know, interaction might help get us to the end result, and might save you folks some additional time. More than happy to do that. I
Plus,
think
we
it's a
would,
good point.
but we would still need that reporting
Yeah,
date.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So unless there's any other questions.
Excuse the
please-
customary thanks, gentlemen. Thank you for
gentlemen.
appearing tonight.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Make the motion.
Yep, I guess the motion, I would say, would be, refer this out to the different individuals that were here, refer to our city solicitor in terms of general language, and we'll grant further time for 45 days. In the interim, we'll do what we can to get this to fruition.
Motion, on the motion. Councilman McLaughlin.
Mr. Chairman, on the motion, and I don't want to keep deliberate on the issue with Councilor Cohon, but do we need to have all of these individuals that are listed here back here again? So if we're going to have the city solicitor come up to discuss this, do we need to have the 911 director who doesn't have any concerns or issues in his department with this and doesn't feel that there's any immediate threat?
Council,
Yeah,
if I
let
can
me-
interject on this, what I'd like to do is have Mr. O'Rourke come back with probably the city solicitor. We don't have to invite all the individuals.
Which is correct. That's
Which
what
is
I-
fine. He was the spokesperson tonight, so basically he should be the one coming back with the directive letter for them.
Which is more than reasonable, absolutely. I
Okay.
just didn't know if all the other individuals need to
Sure.
be invited.
I would amend the motion to that regard.
All right, so the motion, so I have it clear, will be to lay this over for 45 days and invite Mr. O'Rourke and the city solicitor back with a finished copy of the letter that we are going to be sending out to the 240 properties with the individual bad addresses. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, you have done so. Thank you. Motion made and seconded to take item number 2 off the calendar.
Item number 2, this is a order up by Council John Hanlon as president to amend the Complete Street Resolution adopted by the City Council on March 10, 2014, so as to make the city eligible for Mass DOT grant funding in FY 2017.
Mr. Chairman, on the motion.
Councilman McLaughlin.
I really hate to say this because Mr. Monti has been sitting back there. Can we discuss this matter because it's from Councilor Hanlon and he isn't present tonight? Do we need to lay this item on the table for 30 days?
As present. Yes.
Yes, we have to lay it on the table for 30 days?
No, you can debate now, tonight.
Oh, because he did it as president. I apologize. Sorry, Mr. Monti, for scaring you. But can we ask Jay Monti from Community Development to come before us tonight?
Please state your name and title, sir.
Just press that button on the bottom.
There we go. Jay Monty, a transportation planner in community development.
Thank you.
So, 2 years ago, the council adopted this Complete Streets resolution, and the purpose of it was to create a policy by which when we improve our roads, when we reconstruct our roads or construct new roads, we have a structure in place to ensure that it's a road that's designed for all users, whether they be motorists or pedestrians or cyclists or delivery trucks and all that. And this was fed off a statewide initiative. So Mass DOT is actually, they have a Complete Streets program, and this was done in anticipation of that program starting. That program didn't actually get started until this year, And as a result, each community, when they submit their policy to become eligible for assistance from the state, needs to meet certain criteria in order to receive that assistance. So given that we had written this policy 2 years ago and the program is just now starting, they've changed some of their criteria, and these edits are meant to primarily reflect those changes. So what you'll see in here, everything from little just word choice issues, from the word will to the word shall, things like that, just to basically make the policy score higher on their score sheet to ensure that we get a high enough score to be eligible for the funding.
Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Monti. What are some of the bigger changes that we're looking to do?
Sure,
I know
sure.
I understand little grammatical things
Yep.
or word here and there, but what are some of the larger changes
Sure.
that could go?
Yeah, I'll walk through those. So the first one, I'm not sure if you have the policy in front of you, but the first one is where it really defines who we're looking at, who are the users that we want to make sure we look after. And this actually expands the definition a little bit. So where initially we had all users with particular emphasis on cyclists and pedestrians, we've now expanded that to include delivery vehicles, emergency responders, and freight haulers, meaning delivery trucks that may make deliveries downtown. So that actually expands the scope a little bit to more folks. We've added part of the policy establishes a committee that will review any projects that we wish to pursue. We've added a member from the Disability Commission that wasn't on there previously. Beyond that, probably the biggest change here is we've added a section that I guess it creates some flexibility. So in other words, if we get into a situation where for reasons of the right-of-way or like maybe down in on Beecham Street in a particular area where we know there's not going to be any pedestrians, we have an out. We have a mechanism to allow the city to not maybe provide all those accommodations if we really believe that they're not practical, they're not cost-effective, and nobody's going to use them. We have a place here to say, okay, we can be a little flexible here and maybe not provide all those accommodations. And that would be really at the discretion of the mayor. I believe that's how it's phrased here. It would be by the mayor to grant that flexibility. We have, there's a list of design documents that basically the policy directs any roadway designers, whether they be private developers or MassDOT or the city, to reference as they design a street. Since the policy was developed 2 years ago, there's been two documents that MassDOT has adopted, one being the separated bike planning and design guide. And what that does, that creates design standards for creating, we're on cycle tracks, so putting a bike lane off of the pavement, but maybe up on the sidewalk in a safe manner. And the other one is the Urban Bikeway Design Guide. Again, very similar, just creating standards for urban intersections. How do you safely accommodate bikes that don't get in the way of vehicles and create a dangerous situation? So those are relatively new documents that we felt were important to include here. And just as an example of how we are using those with the WIN development and the design of Lower Broadway, these are all things that we can now go to WIN and say, as you design Lower Broadway, you need to abide by these documents. And the last piece was creating a inventory and prioritization plan. This is just a way of taking a look at what we already have in the city in terms of ADA accessibility, any missing links that we may have in the pedestrian network or cycling network, and then being able to prioritize which projects we would want to apply for funding for. And in order to create that prioritization plan, MassDOT is making available $50,000 to help us create that plan. So all told, we have the opportunity to receive up to $450,000 in the next fiscal year if we meet all these criteria.
Okay. And with regards to the committee, did we establish a committee, or we just opened it up a little bit?
We
Because I know
did.
you mentioned disability.
Sure. We had a very preliminary meeting last year, and it involved, I think, everybody on this list. We had folks from engineering, from fire, police, public safety, city services, Energize Everett, and it was sort of just a kickoff meeting to understand what this was all about. once we get the prioritization plan underway, the purpose of the committee is really to take that kind of list of projects and say, okay, what do we want to do with these? Which ones are important? Which ones do we want to include in our roadway reconstruction plan every year, and things like that. So there hasn't been a need since then to meet, but we have taken the initial steps to form that committee.
Okay, so the change is to establish a committee versus expanding it, or it already existed?
No, the
and
committee
just
already
was
existed.
expanded?
We just added the member
Okay,
of the
just
disability.
expanded it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
which is great, because they're gonna be bringing in a point of view that might not have been brought to the table
Exactly.
before, so.
Mhm.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the oversight.
Yep.
Or the overview, rather, and I don't have any other questions.
I have a couple of brief questions. I took about 90% of the notes of what you just spoke of. Are you gonna be able to give us that pamphlet, Jay, at some point?
Oh, sure. I thought you guys already had this. I apologize
Okay,
if you don't.
I don't. I may, my colleagues may, but I don't.
Okay.
And I apologize.
I can certainly provide this to you guys, and, yeah.
I have a couple of quick questions, because I did take a lot of notes when you were speaking. The $50,000 grant from MassDOT, that is to do a study on,
What that does, that takes inventory of kind of the things we already have, like how many ADA ramps do we need to reconstruct? Are there places we should have, say, bicycle racks, but we don't, so maybe never a square? Are there places where, you're riding your bike, say, and there's a bike lane, but suddenly there's a intersection that you just can't get through? And this prioritization plan identifies those areas and those things that would be, important to focus on.
and the $50,000 was given in FY16 by MassDOT?
Well, so the way this works, we've submitted a letter of intent that we will be adopting a compliant complete streets policy. And with that, we've not entered into contract, but MassDOT will enter into contract with the consultant. The consultant will receive the $50,000 to perform the prioritization plan here.
When do we hope to have the report back from the engineering firm that is going to receive the $50,000?
I believe in late June.
Late June, we'll
Yeah.
have this.
Mhm.
The $450,000 that the state
Yeah.
gave us is to take action on the study that is
Right.
that is going to be
So,
done.
so you'll submit a prioritization plan to the state, and with that will be a cost estimate of each of these projects. And it's sort of a first come, first serve. We're eligible for up to $400,000, but again, if people oversubscribe, maybe something a little less than that. But if we get in line first, we're certainly eligible for, a bigger share of the pie.
And that pie is issued annually, or is this a one-time grant that we can get to be able to
They will issue a amount of money every year. The amount will change, and in all likelihood, it's going to go down in future years as more cities, subscribe to the program and there's more demand on it. But I believe that the program is funded for the first 5 years.
at $400,000 or somewhere
Well,
around there?
there's a larger pot of money. I don't
Sure.
offhand know the total amount. They've divided it up knowing roughly how many cities are complete streets, have complete streets policies. And, it turns out to about $400,000 per city.
Okay, no, that's great. And how far along are we in the process of being able to apply for, because as you just said, which I know, the quicker we get on board, the quicker we
Sure.
submit, the better chance that we have of getting the larger sum of money out of this.
Sure. So, like I said, we actually submitted a letter of intent to MassDOT just to get the process moving as quickly as we could. So that consultant should be on board, I believe, within the next month. And it will probably be about a month to actually do the work. And then we submit the plan to MassDOT, and I believe by late summer, early fall, we'll then be receiving the funds.
So at the end of the day, we would be doing these additional these new repairs throughout the community come next spring, a year from now?
We may be able to do some of them before that. I mean, if it's something that we can do in this construction season, late in the season, we'll certainly do it. And we may even, kind of piggyback on other work that we're doing. So if we're repaving a street and we realize that, we should have a enhanced crosswalk here or something, we can, fit it right in and get that in as
And
part of
this
the
is
project.
sort of like a capital improvement plan where this year's projects roll over to next year, but we may add additional projects next year? Is that basically the gist of this?
I think you would have your project list in place, by, like I said, June or July.
But each year it may fluctuate, correct? This year's goals or wishes may be different than next year's. in the
Right,
city,
right.
Because we may check 5 things off the list.
Exactly.
And we're gonna add 5 things.
Mhm.
And this is gonna continue to roll over year after
Sure.
year, hopefully with us getting a large sum of
Right, so it's very
money
similar to
from-
capital improvement plan in that sense, yep.
Okay, thank you for answering the question, Secretary.
Any other questions, councilors?
Excuse the customary thank you for appearing tonight.
You're welcome.
Pleasure on the piece.
I'd like to, actually, so I would like to lay this on the table for 60 days because, as Mr. Monty just said, by the end of June, we should have the study back from the engineering firm. But I don't know if we need to take a vote on this to be able to approve, to allow the intent to go forward.
Could we have Mr. Monty back before us just to
Second
explain
motion.
that point?
Mr. Monty, please do not leave. I excuse you too early. Thank you.
Could you just address that, the timeframe? that
Yeah,
we're
so,
dealing
the letter of intent was, the way the process is supposed to work is that we would have already have adopted the policy in order to be eligible for the $50,000 to do the study. So, you know, as a, I mean, they'll let us do it anyway without that, but as a gesture, we really should be, you know, passing this as soon as possible.
Is there a time, excuse me, from the chair, is there a time frame on this? Is it right away we have to do this, or no?
I think, as soon as possible, I think would be, at some point, MassDOT's going to say, okay, guys, are you really going to do this or not? And, you know, again, if we put it off 60 days at that point, we may have done the study, but MassDOT's sitting there saying, well,
We don't care.
you know,
Okay.
so.
Yeah. All right, so what do we want to do here?
So on the
Counsel?
motion, I would like to refer out with favorable action on this piece. And then at the same time, on the council floor, I'm going to ask to make a motion to put it back into committee so that we can follow up.
Report back?
Report. I don't know if our clerk can explain that to me, but if we vote favorably for
Clerk.
this tonight. Mr. Burley, that's not uncommon.
Well, can we let Mr. Monty go?
Are
Excuse
we
me,
all set with any
customary
questions?
thanks, Mr. Monty.
Excuse the
Appreciate it.
customary thanks.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
for
much.
appearing tonight, sir.
So
Counselor,
it's
what's your
not
pleasure?
it's not uncommon that Mr. Burley doesn't understand me. Typical. If we take it tonight and we vote favorably to send it out to the council with the
You could
recommendation,
give
I
a
wanna be able to
favorable
have this-
action on it.
I want to have a report in 60 days.
Until he gets a report, we put it back into committee once he gets it.
Okay, I just don't want to push this off on Monday night and we're done with the issue.
So your pleasure on the piece?
Favorable action on the item, and Mr. Capone, Council Capone, maybe can explain it better.
Why don't we
Councilman
do-
Capone.
Why don't we do this? Because it sounds like time is of the essence. Sooner is better than later. Why don't we refer it out favorably, and we can confer with Mr. Monty and see what we need to do after the fact, and we can determine what the proper action is on the floor.
And then you can put it back on if you want at that point. All right, favorable action, motion made for favorable action and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Next piece.
Item number 6, it's a resolution by Council Leo McKinnon. Elton City Services appeared to discuss procedures following the mosquito control and to have the health director touch base on the West Nile in the new Zika virus outbreak.
I'm going to lay this over till the next meeting and re-invite her back, and also ask that she provide any statistics on the United States, any infections that were involved in the United States. I believe there were some, and I'd like to hear what information she has on that.
Second motion.
Thank you. This is going to be motion made and seconded to lay over on the table for next meeting and re-invite Health Department, as well as having her bring any up-to-date data that we have on Zika, Nile, and the Zika in West Nile, and mosquito control. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. In Everett, and if there's anything within the state.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion made to adjourn. All those in favor? All those opposed? You have done so.